Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We are going to go over this nice Monday slate. It's let's see, 6 game slate. That's the way I like it. Hopefully you did some winning over the weekend. Our NFL DFS picks were okay. Certainly had some good plays, but some of the chalk did not hit. Chuba Hubbard, we're looking at you, buddy. But yeah, I pushed out a Monday Night Football 2-game DFS slate video for tonight's 2-game doubleheader for Monday Night Football. So you can hit that at the end of this video or just go to our channel at the DFS Build on YouTube. But we're diving in NBA here. If you like free advice and this helps you out in any way, smash that like button and also subscribe to the channel. Both those things help us out. And you subscribing to the channel also gets you alerted to future videos and gets you part of the community. Speaking of which, drop a comment, question, suggestion, whatever you want onto this video or the Monday Night Football video if you have any questions about lineups or any concerns, whatever the case may be. And tonight we will do we'll do a basketball and NBA contest. Just a $1 entry, so no big cost to anybody to enter, and you get a chance to take down Taylor and myself. By the way, we are using Taylor's projections for this video. They are slightly different than Roto Grinders. So we will go over that, and hopefully that'll point you to some good plays, and you can compare that to whatever projection system you use as you wish. All right, let's get to it. Let's go position by position like we normally do on a sizable slate, although 6 games isn't too bad. Anyways, James Harden looks amazing at point guard, 51 points, 51-point fantasy projection. Cade Cunningham coming in with a similar projection. They're about the same price. They're the only 2 point guards in Taylor's projections that come in over even 43 fantasy points. So they both look really good at sub 10K. I think my lean here is Harden for sure, obviously against the Jazz. I don't think I'm going to be alone there. But what do you think of Taylor? You like Harden, Cade, or both?
I like them both. No Tobias for the Pistons, so that gives Cade a little bit of a bump, but matchup against Miami is kind of not great. I'd much prefer Harden against Utah. I assume the field will agree. Getting to a lot of Clippers in general, like it's a great spot. They're shorthanded. It's going to be kind of Clipper season, so I'll probably set some rules with the Clippers because I don't want like 5 of them in the same lineup and all that kind of thing. But they look great. Harden looks great. I don't think Cade's a bad play. Certainly, if the ownership flocks to Harden, he's going to be pretty outstanding as well, assuming they can keep the game close, which is not a sure thing, of course. That's really it. Obviously, everyone else is kind of cheaper. De'Aaron Fox is a bit expensive. Not really someone I'm getting to a lot. I do like some of the other Kings, namely Malik Monk at point guard, but yeah, Harden up top and then kind of dropping down.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's definitely hard. So Cade is just like, I think he's fine. I think he's certainly pivot off of Harden. I would imagine Harden's going to be more owned. I don't really care, though. It's just a smash spot. He has just as much usage and upside and just as good of a floor as Cade does, but Cade's in a way worse spot against the Heat. Cade has averaged 46 fantasy points per game across 2 meetings with Miami. I just think when you're looking at true ceilings here, I just feel like his ceiling is a little bit more curbed based off the matchup. So if I'm picking between the two, it's 100% going to be Harden for me. You can play Cade on this slate. I'm just probably not going to. I think Tyrese Maxey at 8.8K is an interesting pay down away from both these guys. He might end up carrying some ownership. Right now, that's not the case, but with no Joel Embiid, he looks like a fine play. He projects decently. He's facing the Hornets, which is always nice too. I don't know if I'm really going to get to him, but I think he's certainly in play. You mentioned De'Aaron Fox, really nice price. Don't love the matchup with the Nuggets, but he is also interesting. Tyler Hero is projecting very, very well. 43-point fantasy projection gets the Pistons. He is very interesting at 7.6. I think right now, if we're looking up top, I'm probably locking in on Harden. And then if I can get to him comfortably, I think Hero is probably the second guard that I'm seeking out on this slate.
Yeah, I wish he was shooting guard eligible.
Yeah, that's seemingly never going to be the case because
I guess not. It used to only be the case, and now he's point guard only for whatever reason. Yeah, he's a great play. He's the guy I'm getting to more than anyone except Malik Monk at this position. Shooting guard is kind of stacked. Like there are at least three, maybe more awesome shooting guards on this slate. So point guard's always deeper generally, but Hero looks good. I mentioned Malik Monk. Like the matchup against Denver is not as imposing as it was in previous years. They've lost, KCP. Bruce Brown, guys like that over the past couple of years. So they're not quite as stingy. I like Malik Monk in the mid-range. Kobe White looks decent. The Chicago side of this game, I think Levine is questionable. So as of now, it's a pretty appealing game to target with a high total. If Levine is out, guys like White and Vooch and Giddey are going to look a little bit better. I'm still getting to some White, even with Levine currently projected in. But if he's out, I'm kind of expecting Kobe White to become a core play.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on Malik Monk. I like that his prices come down. I think the other slate, he was like 7.3, and I was like, Malik Monk, his projection was just okay. And for that price, I was kind of out. And I ended up being kind of right because he's only had 25 fantasy points in each of his last 2 games. I think at 6.8, I'm back in, though. He's projecting really well for that price tag, so I would much rather play him over De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox is also discounted, but I just think if you're going to play Kingsguard, it's going to be Monk for me. I like Kobe White as well. I think I need Levine out to really fall in love with that, but I think the price tag's really nice at 6.4K. And honestly, just stacking up Bulls and Raptors, there's nothing wrong with that. What's the status of Vooch? Is he just probable?
I don't have him on the injury report, so I'm guessing he's good.
Yeah, he's probable. I guess he had an illness, but it looks like he's going to be fine. I was just going to say if he's out, then obviously Kobe would look even better. But Kobe looks totally fine. I'm not really a priority for me at the moment. But if Levine misses, that would probably change. Nobody else is really popping as we come down here. Let me see. Kevin Porter Jr. at 4.4. He is totally in play. I wish he was, guaranteed more minutes, but he is a good per minute guy. The Jazz are horrendous, and he is pretty cheap. So I think considering we are not loaded up with value on this slate, he is definitely a good value play to consider. Drew Smith
KPJ,
at 3.
You said? Yeah, he looks
awesome.
awesome.
KPJ for sure.
I think
he looks
he's
good.
An awesome play.
And Chris Dunn as well at 4.2K. I mean, they're both facing the Jazz. I think if the game did get out of control, whether or not you want to pay for the Clippers studs, I think those guys are pretty safe. Like they will probably play a bit more than they're projected then if that ends up happening. But either way, they look really good. Drew Smith, I don't really want to play Drew Smith, but the minutes projection and the price both look solid. So I would imagine we'll get something crazy to get me completely off of Drew Smith. But for now, Drew Smith is in play.
He's fine. I'm coming in pretty under the field. It looks like he's really chalky. He played 34 minutes in the last game, and they do have some rotation bodies out, Jovic, Larson, and Richardson, but not very exciting. He's not good per minute. He hasn't really shown a lot of upside. He kind of gets buried from a usage standpoint in this offense. Not my favorite thing. I think if I am going to play a cheap Heat guard, it would be Rozier for 4,500, just because not projected to be that owned. Rozier has a history of being pretty good per minute. I think he does have some upside at a pretty severe ownership discount from Drew Smith. I know he's more expensive, but I think I'd just rather get to Rozier if I'm shopping in that range.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I don't think Drew Smith is a comfortable dive at all. But as things stand, unless we get something really nice to open up, I think the Clippers guys are where I am headed for guard value. Let's kick it over to shooting guard. Norm Powell leads the way with a 43-point fantasy projection in your projection system. I love that because when I first looked at the projections earlier today, I was like, Powell looks okay. But then when I look at your projections, he pops like crazy. So that has me way more excited to play him. I mean, he was always going to be a good play. 6.5K with his usage against the Jazz. He was always going to look good. But here he is with a 43-point fantasy projection. Oh, you said when you updated it's only 40, but still. He looks awesome. He looks like the top play at shooting guard probably. I don't really see a way around him. He's going to carry ownership, but I don't really give a shit about that. As far as spends, you can go get Donovan Mitchell and Brandon Miller up top if you really want to. I just don't think you have to. Powell projects as the same of them or a little bit better, so he just feels like the play over them. We already talked about Monk. He's totally fine at 6.8K, whether it be a pivot off of Powell or just pairing them together. I think Grady Dick at 5.9 is kind of interesting. More exposure to that Bulls Raptors game. Is it safe? No, because it's Grady Dick. He's pretty scoring dependent, but there's no Emmanuel Quickley, no Scotty Barnes. So he's going to get minutes, and he can certainly fill up here in a positive matchup against the Bulls. So not a priority because there's other ways to go on this slate, but I think at 5.9K, he is not too expensive.
I feel like he's under-owned. Like,
Oh, for sure. He's not going to be. I don't think he's going to be very owned at all.
He's taken 21, 11, and 19 shots in the last 3 games. Like, he is gunning out there. He took 14 threes in one game and 11 in the next. Not super efficient with those shots, but good enough. The matchup is literally the best matchup this side of Washington you can get. So if Dick is going to go under-owned, I like Dick quite a bit. And then I forgot to mention him at point guard, but like if you're shopping in the Drew Smith range, I think Lonzo Ball for 4K is a pretty good pivot who's probably not going to get owned at all. Probably won't play more than 20 minutes at the most, but still very good per minute. The game environment is very appealing as well. Just a way better per minute guy than Drew Smith. I don't really think fading Drew Smith has a lot of opportunity cost. Like, is he really going to nuke the slate and kill you if you don't have him? I kind of doubt it. So I don't mind pivoting to Lonzo and even Bones Highland. Like, if you want to play the blowout angle for the Clippers, he would, in theory, see some garbage time. Could be in the rotation anyway. Not a safe play at all. I have him projected for like 14 minutes, but he can beat that if the game gets out of hand. I would probably not play him with like Hart or Powell because I need the game to blow out for Bones to really get there. But if you're looking for kind of just pivot large field tournament who's not going to be owned, I think Bones and Lonzo are fine.
Okay, so back at shooting guard, I think Malik Beasley at 4.6K is in play with no Tobias. Not a priority, but that is not the worst value play. I think Christian Brown and Kelly Oubre Jr. are both interesting at their price ranges. Brown just plays a ton. So he's like the Knicks guys. I say this every time now, but Brown is a decent real life role player who can hit, knockdown shots outside, and he's going to play like 38 minutes if the game is close. So I think based off of minutes alone, and now that he's come down to 5.4K, Brown is an interesting play that kind of last guy in. Like if you only have 5.4K or 5.5K left, and you're looking at Brown, I think that's totally fine. Oubre is not a priority either, but the matchup against the Hornets is good. He plays a lot of minutes, and there is no Embiid, so a little bit more usage for him as well. That's probably it for me here.
Brown is questionable.
Oh, really? Okay, well then.
Yeah, so if he's out, then maybe Strawther is someone.
Yeah, Strawther for sure.
Not exciting,
he's what, 3.9, 3.8K.
So, and he has guard forward, so he'd be a pretty good play, I think.
Okay, good call there. Yeah, so if Brown is in, I still think he's good because I don't think he'd be limited. But if he's out, Julian Strawther looks really good at only 3.8K. All right, RJ Barrett. Go ahead.
Got like LeVert is okay, I guess, and then Levine, if he's in, looks like he might be kind of owned, which I don't love since he hasn't really shown a ceiling. But if it's like late news, maybe people won't play it as much. I don't think he's a terrible play.
No, he's only 7.5K. Obviously gets a positive matchup. I mean, he hasn't been crushing, but he's had 42 plus fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games. Like he's too cheap for what he's been doing lately. I mean, that's fine. If he gets me 42 to 45 fantasy points, that's a win. All right, so over at small forward, RJ Barrett leads the way. His price might get me off of him. He's going to be really owned too. So love the spot, love the roll, love the upside, love the projection. Everything does look good. He is a good play. I just think he's kind of like in Franz Wagner territory where like he doesn't completely stand out as a priority for me. I just feel like it's RJ Barrett. He's been crushing. Everything does look good. I just don't really like the ownership or the price that much. I think I will be looking for ways to get away from that. I think one of the best ways to get away from that is going to be Jimmy Butler. I mean, I personally am still a little bit worried about the whole trade thing. I don't know when that's going to go down, but provided it doesn't and the Pistons could somehow keep this tight, his projection looks amazing. Jimmy Butler looks really good at 7.4K. I'd much rather play him and Norm Powell than go pay for a chalky RJ Barrett. Also really like Paul George. I think he's a really nice pivot down at only $800 cheaper. He looks really good against the Hornets with no Embiid there. Even DeMar DeRozan at 8K. All these guys look really good. I think Jimmy Butler is the first one I'm looking at, and then I also do not mind Paul George at all. I like them both better than Barrett on this slate.
Yeah, I love Jimmy on this slate. I'm kind of getting a lot of Miami in general. Like the matchup against Detroit's pretty good, especially for a small forward like Butler. Like he's like popping through the roof for me, along with Norm Powell. So happy to play the mid-range game with them and not pay up for RJ. I agree with that. Like I said, Miami has injuries. They have a couple of guys, Haywood Highsmith and Jaime Jaquez, who are both 3-7. Should see minutes for both. Jaquez is the way more appealing per minute guy, the way more appealing play in general, but Highsmith gets enough minutes to be playable. Just not my favorite way to get to that team. Otherwise, Cam Johnson, I think, looks good. No Schroeder. He got traded over the weekend. They're just down bodies. Brooklyn isn't a great team to target on this slate against Cleveland, of course, with blowout risk, but they've been competitive. He's shown decent upside, all the usage for him. I think in the mid-range. Butler, I much prefer to Cam, but Cam's also fine.
Yeah, I think the matchup with the Cavs and the price might keep me away from Cam Johnson. He's not really the kind of guy that is going to go and create a lot of offense on his own. He's kind of a spot-up guy. So maybe he'll be more aggressive just because he has to, but I just don't really want to pay that for him. I mean, obviously Jimmy Butler is a very natural pivot in the same price range. Certainly based off of usage and price, I agree with you. Cam Johnson is a fine play. I think if I'm going to do the Nets thing, I'll probably just go down lower and maybe take a shot on Keon Johnson or Shake Milton or something, 4.7 or 4.6K. Not that they feel a lot better, they're just a lot cheaper, and they get me value on a slate that does not have a lot of it. We keep going down here if we want to. Keegan Murray's kind of cheap at 5.7K. He's kind of in the same territory as Christian Brown. Similar price, similar minutes projection, similar overall projection. These are just guys who they get a ton of minutes. So if you're going to be out there for 35 plus minutes, you have a really good chance at crushing a price tag like that. So I do not mind those guys at all. I like the Jaquez call. The only problem is it projected for 19 minutes. That seems gross. Like I really wish like he would start, and I felt like he'd have a really good shot at 30 minutes. If so, that would be a slam dunk. He'd be like the best value of the entire slate. As things stand, I think he's an okay try, but he's not exactly a reliable option, even though good matchup. And like you said, dead bodies in Miami. If he starts, I think I'm willing to give it a shot at 3.7K, but I don't know why they really like to start Haywood Highsmith for some reason. I don't get it.
Yeah, I wish he would start too. He'd be like mega chalk in that.
I might play him anyways, just because he's really cheap and we know he's a good permanent guy. But I will very much prefer him to start if I'm going to use him.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the way they have it, but like Duncan Robinson and Highsmith just seem to have an inside track to the minutes. They're both bad.
What do they have on Eric Spoelstra? Like, what is it? What do they have on him? Hawkins just sitting there like, guys, he's like, dude, I'm better. Just play me.
Yeah. He must have some kind of shortcoming because they played him more last year than they do this year, it seemed.
Yeah. Okay, so over at power forward, similar guys project really well. Barrett, Butler, George, even DeRozan, those guys all look great. My preference, of course, is Jimmy and then Paul George. If you want to play RJ Barrett, that's fine. The only issue is those other two guys are way cheaper and they're less owned. So that's just going to do the decision-making for me. John Collins projects decently, but the matchup with the Clippers is not great. I don't really want to pay almost 8K for him there. Evan Mobley is back, but blowout risk and 7.9K. I think like those guys are okay. I just think the other guys look better. Yabusele against the Hornets with no Embiid. I think he could be in play at 5.2K. Definitely prefer Drummond as provided Drummond starts, but Yabusele is not out of play here. Aaron Gordon looks good at 5.5K. That's a really good price for probably 32 to 35 minutes against the Kings. Don't mind that at all. Jonathan Mugbo, 4.4K against the Bulls. He started the last game. Very good chance he starts again tonight. If that is the case, I like him quite a bit at 4.4K. Certainly not a safe play, but he has been a decent permanent guy. And if he's starting against the Bulls at that price, that's probably enough for me to take a shot.
Yeah, the only issue with him, like earlier I saw he was projecting for like 60% ownership, which seems like a lot for Jonathan Mobo, but it is what it is. Starting role, played 30 minutes in the last game. He's cheap. I'm going to be under the field if he's that chalky, but I'll still have some of them. I think Yabusele is a way more stable play at 5.2, like you said, like starting maybe. Even starting, I don't know. I feel like they've started him and Drummond together. That's what RG has projected. So
they did, yeah. When Embiid was out, they were starting them together. I don't know if he was starting when Embiid was back, though.
No, he might have been off the bench with Embiid back, but
okay, yeah.
I don't know. They're both projected to start. I don't know what's going on there, but Minute pretty safe, okay per minute production, and he's affordable. So I like that. I don't love that first game in general. We haven't even talked about the LaMelo thing. Like, he's questionable, but don't really think that's going to open up a ton of value on the Charlotte side at this point. But
At least I wouldn't be on Micic anymore. Fuck that guy.
It's been a fun ride with Micic for the last few
weeks.
weeks.
No, it hasn't actually. It really hasn't. I used him 2 times. 2 times in his last 5 games or 6 games. 4 times he wrecked. Not the times I used him.
Yeah.
Annoying.
I don't know. That's frustrating. But
I know.
I do like the Aaron Gordon call. He's too cheap for who he is. That game looks pretty good. High total, tight spread, and all that. So I like that. That's really it. Like, we've kind of talked about everyone that I want to play here already. John Collins, maybe, if you're playing a bunch of Clippers, but not great.
Yeah. As a run back, good projection. Price is still okay. I just feel he's getting a little bit expensive for the matchup. Don't really want to do it personally. Honestly, if I was going to do something like that, if I wanted to run back in that Clippers game, I think Lauri Markkanen at 6.9K. Price has come down enough that we could feel a little bit better about taking a chance on him at GPPs. Thing is, I'm not really playing the Clippers because I think the game's going to stay close. I'm playing the Clippers because I think it's going to be a bloodbath and they're going to just smoke them, And if it stays close, great. I just don't think that's the strategy I'm going to take this time. All right. So moving on to center, obviously, there's a lot to like, in the mid range, like high mid range, low mid range. Anybody anywhere from like 6K to 9K, lots to like. But this still could be a Jokic slate. Jokic sure did burn just about everybody. Took 9 shots and got 30 fantasy points in his last game, and this was coming after 2 70+ fantasy point outings. So very, very frustrating.
80
but
plus.
that's recency bias. Well, whatever the case may be, he was crushing. But that's recency bias in a nutshell, my friends. He is 12.2K. He is worth it in theory. 65-point fantasy projection leads the slate by quite a bit. There is no Luka. There is no Giannis. There really is nobody else on this slate who actually can match him in ceiling. So you still have to consider Jokic. I like that he's not going to be owned. The Kings matchup is not very scary. I don't think I'm going to get there personally, but you kind of overlooked Jokic, especially with his most recent game not going well. It's interesting for sure.
Yeah, I wish I was getting to more. Maybe if more value opens up, I will. It's just 12-2 is kind of a lot to pay on this slate with pretty shaky value. We've talked about Drew Smith and Haywood Highsmith and guys like that. So if something better opens up, I'll probably get more. But as of now, I'm kind of living in the mid-range instead of paying all the way up.
Yeah, same. So the other issue is there's a lot to like at center. So Sabonis at 9.7K, you're saving like, you're saving like $2,000 compared to Jokic, and he's pushing for almost 50-point fantasy projection in that same game. You got Vooch against the Raptors at 8.5K coming out with a 45-point fantasy projection. Pirtle is probably the best overall value at the position, only 7.3K with a 43-point fantasy projection. I love him against the Bulls. Bam looks good at 8.2K. Zubac looks good against the Jazz at 7.1. Like, I just don't know if you really need to play Jokic on this slate. I think obviously it's about fear of missing out. That's what it is. You don't want to not play Jokic and then he goes and gets 90. Like, that's not fun. But like pairing Zubac and Pirtle feels like a pretty darn good way to attack this slate. But then there's even the value. Drummond at 5.5K if he starts looks good. Mogbo at I'm saying his name wrong again, but at 4.4K if you don't use him at power forward, he's even in play. So a lot to like at center. So that's the main reason why Jokic's ownership is kind of low.
Yeah, I think Pirtle's probably my favorite, but he's going to be owned. I think my favorite center who's not projecting to be very popular is Kessler. 6'6", like, he's the most obvious run back for me on the Utah side of the game. His minutes floor is very safe. He's played at least 30 in each of his last 7 or 8 games. So even if they get blown out, he in theory is going to play at least 30 minutes. And given his production, that's more than enough for him to meet value. I think it's 6'6" or exceed it if the game is close. I just love him on this slate, and I feel like he's kind of a smash that's not going to be very chalky at all.
Yeah, I think the price is good, and I like the logic of a run back. I don't really love playing centers against Zubac, though. He seems to be a little bit restrictive.
Let's see what the matchup says.
I
It's
mean,
a
you
slightly
always,
better than average matchup, I think.
yeah, I don't know.
Hookers are a lot better against wings and guards than they are against bigs.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying Zubac historically just I feel like anytime I ever play anybody against Zubac, it's just the ceiling is very capped. So obviously though, Kessler can get there on rebounds and blocks alone, really. Like if he can score 10 points and then goes and gets a bunch of rebounds and stuff, he can still smash. And he's also only 6.6K. The issue is not just like offensively is Kessler running into a brick wall possibly. It's also Zubac soaks up a shit ton of rebounds. So like is Zubac just going to steal all the rebounds? It's very possible he does. So I don't hate the Walker play as a run back and as a price point. And he's projecting pretty damn well, honestly. So in theory, he actually looks like a better play than Zubac. I just am not super excited about the matchup, I guess. So, okay, are you playing Drummond here if he starts at 5.5K, or do you think the minutes cap makes him not really that good of a play?
I don't think he's a bad play. It just seems like he hasn't really shown the same per minute upside that he did in previous years for whatever reason.
Right.
I'm also kind of worried. Like, I don't really want to play Yabusele and Drummond, even if they're starting together. Like, that just doesn't feel great to me, especially since they're both in that first game. And who knows what kind of news we'd still be waiting on by then. And just cramming 2 roster spots with that shitty Sixers Hornets game is not my favorite way to play this slate. So it's fine. I think he's an okay play, but I don't think I'm going to be getting to him with like major volume on this slate. I think, Pirtle's a great play. Kessler's a great play. Vooch, we haven't talked about in the mid-range, looks good. Better if Levine is out. Collins is okay, but like you said, a bit expensive. I think I can punt with Kevin Love, even if he plays 14 minutes, just because he's 3-3. Of course, 14 minutes is not a lock at all. He's played single digits in the last 2 games, but they do have injuries. The matchup's pretty good. I think if you want to fully punt, I don't hate Kevin Love, even if he doesn't play in a lot of minutes.
Kevin Love center only.
Yeah, feels
I don't
bad.
like that at all. I hate that.
Yeah.
In all fairness, back in November, he played 12 minutes and had 36 fantasy points. So
he can do a lot in no time.
He can. I really wish
but
they
it's not a good.
It's
not a safe play at all. Like he can definitely burn you.
I cannot vouch for that personally at all. I do agree with your sentiment about Drummond, though. I think Drummond is a really good tournament play at 5.5K if he starts, but he's also very risky, and I also would not play him with Yabusele either. Pick a side there. Yabusele is the better value, and also he's probably got a safer minutes projection. And he's maybe a little bit less likely to get injured after 1 minute and ruin your night. Because Drummond did that earlier this year. Actually, he was crushing. He had like 9 fantasy points in like 5 minutes and then got hurt, and that was it. That was the end of my night that day. Okay, so let's wrap things up here with our flag plant of the slate and our general strategy.
I think I'll flag plant Butler. Just like the best matchup you can get as a forward against Detroit. No Tobias even might make a little bit better. I just think he's an awesome play. Not going to be as owned as RJ Barrett. I'd much rather get the almost $2,000 savings with Jimmy compared to RJ Barrett. And then overall, it kind of looks like a balanced build to me. I'm not really getting to all the Jokic mid-range stuff like Hero and Butler and Kessler and Pirtle and Norm Powell. All looks awesome to me. If I am spending, it might be on Harden. Not to say you shouldn't play Jokic. Obviously, he's Jokic, but as of now, I'm not getting a ton of them.
No, I think we're aligned here. If Jokic is gonna, if we update it and Jokic is like 5% owned, I might get a little bit more interested. But my flag play is just going to be that. It's going to be I'm not paying for Jokic. I'm just going balanced here. I think you still can get a stud that's worth having. I think that's going to be Harden. If he's only going to be like 16 to 20% owned, that might be low enough. Like that's not very chalky on a 6-game slate for your stud. And then in general, like I'm just going to go and get some of these guys that are just too cheap. Pirtle, Jimmy Butler, perhaps Hero, definitely Norm Powell. Like I do think you can entertain the idea of if you're going to go get Powell, maybe don't get Harden as well. but they've honestly been eating up all the usage among the Clippers starters. So I don't really think it's a big issue. I think they both are going to eat, and the matchup with the Jazz is really, really good. So in general, I'm just not going to pay for Jokic tonight. Harden's probably going to be in most of my lineups. And I just really like rounding out with a core of Pirtle, Butler, and Powell. So I think maybe the best way to get different, assuming this Jimmy Butler ownership doesn't stick right now, that what is he at? 5? Like that's not actually going to be what he's at.
I hope it is.
I know that'd be amazing. Then right away with Jimmy Butler in a smash spot, projecting him amazingly, you don't need to worry about ownership that much. I just think I'm not going to worry about ownership in general. Like I'm just going to play the best plays of this slate.
I don't worry about it either. It's
right.
Too much.
I think
in basketball.
On other slates, you can worry about it more. I just feel like if Jokic is there, that'll take away some of the ownership. And then I'm already fading like RJ Barrett. Like I already don't want to play RJ Barrett. So that's kind of making a decision for me. And then I think maybe just get a little bit different in the values you pick if you want to go, the way that we're going here. But all right. So I think that's going to do it for us. Hopefully this helps you out. If it does, smash that like button. Even, if it does help you and you win tonight, drop a comment, let us know how you did. And also subscribe to the channel if you are not doing so already. Helps you get alerted to future videos just like this. All right. Thanks for watching and good luck.